morning. I want to pick up where we left off last week. We were talking about Peter's second chance. He had failed his boldness to defend Jesus at the trial, and he had fallen, and Jesus reinstated him. Go and feed my lambs. Go and feed my sheep. He had get that second opportunity, and we talked about how he stood up on Pentecost and told the good news of the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, our Easter story. But he didn't stop there. He continued to teach. He continued to tell people all that Jesus had done. The good news, the miracles, the teachings. He continued to tell about Jesus. Well, him and John kind of upset the religious leaders. So they arrested Jesus, Peter, just as they arrested Jesus. And they threw him in the prison for a while, and they were trying to figure out what to do with him. So they finally decided they're going to release him, and they had these instructions. We're going to let you go. But here's the deal. You go, but you cannot talk anymore about Jesus. Do not go out there and tell them any more about Jesus' teachings, about his miracle, about the death, burial, and resurrection. You can go, but you can't discuss Jesus anymore. Well, here's what Peter and John said in their reply. But Peter and John replied, "Judge for yourself whether it is right in God's sight to obey you rather than God. For we cannot help speaking about what we have seen and heard." We cannot help speaking what we have seen and heard. It's what I call God stories. You know, it's Easter time, and we're talking about Jesus, the burial, death, and resurrection. But there's more stories to Jesus than just that. There's the miracles, there's his teachings, and there's what God does today. Yeah, I think too often we kind of talk about all the stuff of the past, and we don't realize how much God is doing today. And I teach them at our church, and I keep asking them, we got to tell those God stories. We got to pass on the God stories. God is just not a God of 2,000 years ago. He's a God of yesterday, the God of tomorrow. And we need to tell those God stories. That's what I want to encourage us. You know, I just took that 5,000-mile trip. Had a great time going and seeing my granddaughter. But I had some worries about it. I'm going up to North Dakota in the middle of winter, well, the end of the winter. The week before, there was snow, below zero weather. My granddaughter had shot us pictures and talked about how cold it was and below zero, and they may cancel classes. And we're going to leave. And it's like, well, do I have change? How am I going to deal with this? How are we going to go through this? But it's like, I'm going. And we went on that trip, and let me tell you, we had great weather. We had snow, kind of a breeze one night, and it disappeared the next day. The day we left, there was snow, but we drive 25 miles down the road, there's no more snow. No rain. The only thing we dealt with was a little bit of wind, like 60 miles an hour gusts there in South Dakota and North Dakota. But God provided all that. Now, I'm not saying God controlled the weather. He did, and he could. It might be God controlled the week, because the week after, right now, they've had snow again. And they're slipping and sliding on the road. But God gave us that week. I think God blessed me. I think that's a God story that I want to tell. You know, here we have this great trip we enjoy with our daughter and with seeing our granddaughters. I get to see different aspects. I got a free car. Had to pay a little more for gas, but the car was free. Most of the hotel rooms were pretty good. It's not all perfect, but it was a great trip. I really feel that was a blessing from God. And that's a God story I want to tell. That's a God story I want people to know, that God is just not a God of the past. So I want to encourage you this Easter, as you gather around. Nobody's going to tell you can't talk about God. You can't share Jesus. I want to encourage you to tell some God stories. You know, most of the time I'll say, tell me a God story, and everybody goes, well, I've had one, but I just can't remember. Well, I want to encourage you, remember. Tell a God story. You know, later on, John wrote to the church, and this is what he wrote in 1 John. We are telling you what we have seen and heard, so that you may share in this life with us. And we share it with the Father and with the Son. See, I want to encourage us to tell the good news, to share those stories that God has done. I'm going to ask you, what has God done? Can you tell me a God story? Are you going to go, yeah, he's done it, but I don't remember. I want to encourage you, tell me a God story. It's Easter, man. We're going to have a great time telling the big one on Sunday. We're going to celebrate the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. We're going to have a great time. We begin a new series, Unshakable Hope. Man, we got some promises to look at. So I want to invite you. Show up 6:15 at the park, sunrise service. Join us again at 10:30 at the church, or be with us online anytime. We'll have a great time together. But I want to say I love you. I really do. I pray for you, especially if you let me know what. I will pray. And I love you. God bless you. Take care. See you Sunday, one way or another. God bless you.